Okay, welcome back everyone. This is the Delta Workbook. It's Mr. Australia here, and we're looking at Lesson 5, calculating the area of a circle. If you haven't done so already, just pause the video now and have a go at the do it now questions. Right, number one, we're factorising this expression. Now it's the other way round than some of the expressions you're used to seeing, but we still need to follow the exact same rules and start by taking out the highest common factor to all parts of the expression. That is going to be 6. Now, how do I get from 6 to 18? I multiply it by 3. How do I get from 6 to negative 6x? Well, 6 multiplied by 1 gives me the 6 I need. 6 multiplied by negative 1 gives me the negative 6 I need. And then 6 multiplied by negative 1x will give me the 6x that I need. However, we do not write 1x. If you just got an x on its own, you just write x. So this is 6 brackets 3, subtract x, close brackets. If you expand those out to check, you will get 18 minus 6x. Okay, number 2. Here we've been asked to simplify this expression. Going to have a look at the x's first. We've got x to the power of 3 here and x to the power of 2 here. Once you've got the same base and you're multiplying them, you need to add the powers together. 3 add 2 gives you 5. So that's going to be x to the power of 5. We're now having a look at our y's. Y on its own is the same as y to the power of 1. We're multiplying our terms, so we will need to add our powers together. 1 add 7 gives us 8. So it's y to the power of 8. Next, we've got 0.45 times 4. So here, all we're going to do is 45 times 4, make a note of how many decimal places we've taken out and put those back in at the end. So what you're going to get here is 180, and you put those 3 decimal places back in. So the final answer is going to be 0.18, because you do not need to include the zeros that you have at the end of the number when it's after the decimal point. Okay. Number 4, we're subtracting fractions. Now, whenever you're adding or subtracting fractions, what you want to do first is find a common denominator. So we've got 7/9, subtract 2/5. Our common denominator, we're going to get by multiplying our denominators together. 9 multiplied by 5 gives you 45. So we're going to have that the same throughout our calculation. Okay, how did I get from 9 to 45? I multiplied it by 5. So I need to do the same with my numerator to keep it equivalent. 7 5s are 35. How to get from 5 to 45? I multiply by 9 to do the same with your denominator, and you get 18. You're now ready to subtract your numerators, and you'll be left with 17/45. That's your final answer. It cannot be simplified any further. Okay, next, question number 5. We've got the nth term. Just going to start by writing out the sequence, and we can see straight away it's getting larger. So we're adding something each time. What are we adding on each time? We're adding 8. So it's like we've got a form of the 8 times table here. So we've actually found the first bit of our nth term. It's going to be 8n. I'll then write out my 8 times table and think, how have I got from that 8 times table to the actual values in my sequence? Okay, how do you get from 8 to negative 3? How do you get from 16 to 5? You see here, what I'm doing is I'm subtracting 11 each time. Subtracting 11. So the final bit of our nth term will be subtract 11. Nth term, 8n, subtract 11. Okay. Right then, let's have a look at our examples. Now, as you can see, I've highlighted up here the Hegarty tasks. We've got 539 to 543. These will start off simple and they'll get progressively more challenging. So if you're not confident, have a look at the video for 539 and try some of the questions. If you want to challenge yourself even further, maybe have a go at 542 or even 543. Okay, this is a great way to extend yourself further. You get instant feedback, and you can also message me through Hegarty if you need. Right, we are finding the area of a circle. Now we've got the formula for that here. A is equal to pi r squared. Pi r squared. Now the first step we'll need to do when finding the area of a circle is to work out what the radius. So step number 1 is find the radius. Find r, the radius. Sometimes it will be given to you. However, sometimes they will give you the diameter. And they'll say the diameter is 10. You will need to find out the radius. To get from the diameter to the radius, you always divide by 2. We have a look at our circle diagram. You can see the radius is from the center to the circumference, whereas diameter is double that. It's all the way from the center to the circumference to the circumference. So that is D. Okay. So diameter to radius, you need to half it. Okay. So once you've found your radius, what you'll then need to do is square it. So step number 2 is square the radius. And squaring is that little 2 button. I'll just show you where it is on your calculators. So bring your calculators up and you can see that the squared button is this one here. Okay, it's the X with a little 2 above it. Okay. So once you've squared your radius, what you'll then need to do is multiply it by pi. Okay, so you've got the r squared, you now need the pi bit. So multiply by pi. Then you will need to press the SD button to get the numerical value, because it would just say, if we look at the example here, it would just say 9 pi. Okay, if you do 3 times 3 times pi in your calculator, it will just say 9 pi. That's when you press the SD button, you'll get a long number. And you will then need to pay attention to what they've asked for in the question, because you will most likely be expected to round. In all of the examples we've got in the main activity, they're all to 1 decimal place, okay? But you will need to pay attention to each individual question there. Finally, you need your units. We are finding areas, so your units will be squared. Centimetres squared, millimetres squared, metres squared, or even kilometres squared if you've got a very large circle area that you're trying to find out. Okay, we're going to have a go at the main questions now. Okay then. So in green up here, I've written pi r squared. That is how you find the area of any circle. The area is equal to pi r squared. Okay, for question 1, we've actually been given all of the radiuses, or the radii, I should say. So first thing to do is just identify what that radius is. 1a, our radius r is 2 centimetres. Therefore, r squared, we will need to multiply 2 by itself, 2, and we'll get 4. We then need to multiply that by pi. So on your calculators, it will just say 4 pi. That's when you press the SD button to get the long decimal answer. It will be 12.56 ... However, because we only need to round it to 1 decimal place, we only need to write down 2 decimal places initially. We only need to look at that second decimal place. Here we've got a 6. 5 and above, we give it a shove. 6 is above 5. So you'll need to round that 5 up to a 6. Our units in the question were centimetres. That was your radius. So you found the area. It's going to be centimetres squared. Okay, just write that down here. We had 12.6 centimetres squared. Okay, let's have a think about the next one. B. Do that one in blue. Hey, this time our radius r is 10 millimetres. So r squared, just going to multiply 10 by itself, it's going to be 100 millimetres. Pi r squared will be 100 millimetres times pi. Then you press your SD button and you will get out 314 0.15 dot, dot, dot. Round that to 1 decimal place. Now we get 314.2 this time, because that 5 will round the 1 up to a 2. Our units here were millimeters, so for the area, it will be millimeters squared. Okay, going to do C now over here. Our radius this time was 3 meters. So our radius squared will be 9 meters. Multiply that by pi is going to be 9 pi. Press the SD button on your calculator for 9 pi and you get 28.27. Round that to 1 decimal place and include your units. It was measured in meters, so your area will be meters squared. Okay, finally, part D. This time our radius was 30 millimeters. And as you're going to see, it's going to look like a very similar answer to question C. The only thing that's going to change here is our placeholders. So R squared is going to be 900 millimeters, pi R squared, 900 pi. Press the SD button and we get 2827 again, 0.43. Round that to 1 decimal place and we get 2,827.4. It's an area, so it's millimeters squared. So for part A, we had 12.6 centimeters squared. For part B, 314.2 millimeters squared. C, 28.3 meters squared. And D, 2,827.4 millimeters squared. Okay, so that was question 1 done. Just going to rub this out. And next, we're going to have a go at question 3. The start of question 3 is very, very similar to question 1. They just have not drawn the circular diagrams. If you find it helpful, by all means, sketch out a circle and label your radius on there, just to ensure you don't forget. Okay then, so 3A, let's have a look at this. First things first, what is our radius? It was given to us, it's 6 millimeters. Therefore, our radius squared is going to be 6 times 6, 36 millimeters. Pi R squared will be 36 pi. Then if we press the SD button to find its numerical value, we're going to get 113.09 dot, dot, dot. Because again, they just asked us to round to 1 decimal place. I'll just highlight that to make it a bit clearer. 1 decimal place. And for all of these, we are using the formula area equals pi multiplied by R squared, pi R squared, okay? So back to question 3A. We just need to round it to 1 decimal place like they asked for. 113.1 this time. Our units were millimeters, so for our area, it will be millimeters squared. That's 3A. Okay, so we've got B now. Our radius for B was 5 centimeters. So our radius squared, R squared, will be 25. Pi, R squared, will be 25 pi. If you press your SD button next, you'll find the numerical value of 25 pi. That's going to be 78.53 dot, dot, dot. And it's a good idea to show the numerical value that it continues with a dot, 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 because you might get some method marks even if you make a mistake with your final bit of rounding. This is going to be 78.5 centimeters squared. Okay, let's have a look at C now. So we've got 4 radius, sorry, was 4. So our radius squared will be 4 times 4, 16. Pi r squared is going to be 16 pi. Pressing our SD button to find a numerical value. It's going to be 50.26 ... Rounding it to one decimal place, that 6 is going to round the 2 up to a 3. Our units there, radius was meters. So it's going to be meters squared. Hey, part D now. Our radius was 6.5. Our radius squared will be 6.5 multiplied by 6.5. You get 42.5. Multiply that by pi, so pi r squared, going to be 42.5 pi. Put that into your calculator, press your SD button, and you will get out 132.73. Round that to one decimal place like you've been asked for, and you'd get 132.7. Let's just have a look at our units. They were centimetres for our radius, so they'll be centimetres squared for our area. Okay, and those were questions 3A to D. We're now going to have a go at questions 3E to H. Slightly different here, slightly different, because we haven't actually been given the radius. We've been given the diameter. So we need to have a think. How do we get from the diameter to the radius? We just need to half it. From radius to diameter, you multiply by 2. From diameter to radius, you divide by 2. Okay, so this is question 3E now. This time our diameter, D, was 8.5. So our radius, R, is going to be half that, 4.25. We now need to square that, R squared. That's going to be 18.0625. And again, it's not essential that you write out all of this. You can perform it on your calculator. What is really important for you to do is clearly identify the radius, show the examiner that you've done R squared, show them that you've multiplied by pi, and then make sure you've rounded at the end. Okay, so these will be worth more than 1 mark, more than often. Right, multiply that by pi. It's just going to be all of this pi. So 18.0625 pi. That's what you put into your calculator next. Press your SD button to work out the actual numerical value, and that's going to be 56.74. And we're still only rounding to one decimal place. It's going to be 56.7. Our units were millimeters. So for the area, it's going to be millimeters squared. Hey, let's have a look at F now. Here, our diameter, D, was 3.5. To get from our diameter to our radius, we need to half that, divide it by 2. Half of 3.5 will give you 1.75. We now need to do R squared, square our radius. If you do that, you get 3.0625. So pi r squared is just going to be that pi, 3.0625 pi. Press the SD button on your calculator to get its numerical value. And that's going to be 9.62 ... Round that to one decimal place, and we'll get 9.6. It was measured in meters, so our area will be meters squared. Okay, having a look at G now. Question 3G. Our diameter here was 12, so our radius will be half that, 6. R squared is going to be 36. So pi r squared will just be 36 pi. We then need to press our SD button and work out its numerical value. That's going to be 113.09 ... And we're rounding that to 1 decimal place. So this 9 is going to round the 0 up to a 1. So we're going to have 113.1. Now this was a very large circle because its diameter was in kilometers, so its area will be kilometers squared. Okay, going to have a look at H now. For H, our diameter was 22. So our radius will be half that, 11. Our radius squared, 11 times 11, gives you 121. So pi, r squared, will be 121 pi. We now need to work out its numerical value. So press the SD button on your calculator. Where are we? And we get 380.13 ... Round that to 1 decimal place, and it's going to be 380.1, and it's centimeters squared. So those were questions 3E to 3H. Finally, we're going to have a look at questions 3I to 3L. Now, the first set of questions in question 3, they were all given the radius. In the set that we've just completed, they all gave us the diameter. Tricky part in the next set of questions is that they've given us a mixture of both. So you're really going to have to pay attention here to what they've given you in the question. The thing we want when we're finding the area is the radius. So you must make sure you've identified the radius as your first step. First one starts off nice and simple because they've given us the radius. So this is question 3I now. They've given us the radius, which is 1.3 meters. We now need to square the radius to find r squared. And that's going to be, just do that on our calculator now. Got 1.3 squared. That gives us 1.69. So pi r squared will be 1.69 pi. Press the SD button on your calculator, and that will give you 5.30 ... Round that to 1 decimal place, and you get 5.3. Our dimensions for the radius were given in meters, so our area is going to be meters squared. Okay, on to the next one. We're now on question J, 3J. This time we've been given a diameter. So if our diameter is 44 millimeters, our radius is going to be half that, 22. We now are ready to square our radius. So 22 squared, we get 484. So pi r squared is going to be 484 pi. We now need to find its numerical value, which is going to be 1,520.53. Still only rounding to 1 decimal place. So it's going to be 1,520.5 millimeters squared. Okay, have a look at K now. We've been given a diameter again. First thing we're going to need to do here is half that to get our radius. So that's going to be 0.6. Okay, once we've done that, we need to find the radius squared, which is going to be 0.36. So pi r squared is going to be 0.36 pi. Its numerical value is going to be 1.13 ... Round that to 1 decimal place, and we get 1.1. Our units initially for the radius, for the diameter were millimeters, so our area will be millimeters squared. Okay, final question now. We're on L. This time we've been given a radius, 1.05 meters. We need to square that. 1.05 squared. That gives us 1.1025. So pi r squared is just going to be 1.1025 pi. Press the SD button on your calculator to find its numerical value. That's going to be 3.46 ... And then we need to round to one decimal place. 3.5, and it's going to be meters squared. Okay, that is the lesson on area of a circle completed. That was lesson number 6. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to message me or show my homework. If you want to push yourself further, then have a go at the Hegarty tasks, 539 to 543, or you can have a go at some of the core bit activities linked on Show My Homework. And I'll see you in the next lesson.